Voices from elsewhere. I ran through all of the predictable themes in my head: globalization, multiculturalism, migration, nationality, ethnicity, identity, but found them all, frankly, a bit too worthy and dry to connect to. So then my girlfriend said, "It's easy. Voices from elsewhere. Ventriloquism." I asked her if she meant I should do a ventriloquist show, and she pointed at me and said, "Well, all you need is a dummy. How hard could it be?" We did some research, started practicing, learned the ways to fake the F, V, B, P, and M sounds, what in the science of ventriloquism are known as labial sounds. I told her she was good at it. She told me I was not, that I looked like Sean Penn in I Am Sam, and sounded like Keanu Reeves in, well, like Keanu Reeves. I told her I could get used to her ventriloquizing, her lips forced, always slightly ajar, but a mouth never allowed to move, that it much better suited her than me. She said, "Yes, you've always had difficulty producing labial sounds." "Stop picking fights with M," I wrote in my diary that night. Then I Googled Sean Penn and I Am Sam and Keanu Reeves and speech impediment, and came away saddened at the cruelty of life. Thinking about ventriloquism, though, got me thinking about an event I did a while back in Paris. I started things off in the usual way by saying something like, how you going? And there began a giggling in the audience, which slowly grew into widespread laughter. Needless to say, I started panicking. I wanted them to laugh, of course, but not before I tried to be funny. As it turned out, to them, I was funny. What was funny was that a voice that sounded like mine was coming out of a face that looked like mine. I was an Asian dummy with an Aussie voice. Now, this is probably latent racism, but sometimes, when I'm in a tricky situation, I think, what would Bruce Lee do? Sometimes I even tell white people he's my grandfather. "But his surname has 2 E's, and yours only 1, they might point out. "Yes, well, as you know," I would whisper, "we were refugees, boat people. We had to leave almost everything behind. Even vows." My grandfather Bruce wouldn't have been perturbed by this Parisian crowd. And when, after the event, a genial Australian bloke, whose beard totally covered his lips, so that when he talked it seemed like his voice arose from a quivering bush, when he came up to me and said, "No offence," and you've got to love it when strangers lead with "no offence," "but when you opened your mouth," he said, "none of us could believe how Australian you sounded." When he said this, Bruce would have kept his cool. "When you open your mouth," I said, "I can't even see your mouth." Over the years, I've thought about this bearded man, and I've come to realise he was wrong, but he was also right. He was right, for one, about my accent. There are huge gaps in my cultural upbringing. I grew up speaking only Vietnamese at home and only English outside, so I never learned how to speak English with an Asian accent. Do you know how embarrassing it is to look like Confucius and not be able to pull off a Confucius joke? I'm always forgetting, for example, whether you're meant to turn your R's into L's, as in little labbit, or your L's into R's, as in little rabbit. Once, For complicated reasons I won't go into, a travelling companion needed me, with no notice, to pretend to her parents, who were picking us up from the airport, that I was a newly arrived Chinese exchange student. I was too scared to try my Asian accent in English, in case the conversation steered into a discussion about little rabbits, or red roosters or some such. So I was forced into speaking Chinese. I don't speak Chinese.